Today I did a talk that drew on the history of museums, which are actually a relatively new invention, only 200 or so years old. And I focused on where the museum sector is heading, drawing on the 7 biggest challenges that it's facing, from financial to environmental, and also shifting consumer behaviors, so that we can think about how we can rise to meet those challenges and keep museums resilient.
The rebound that we see from the COVID-19 pandemic has been faster, it's been larger, and it's been broader than even the most senior leadership experts expected. We are now not able to carry the amount of visitors that people want to go on tour. So you're having a capacity crunch not only in museums, but generally across travel operators.
6 to 7, 6 to 10 exhibitions a year is in some ways unsustainable. So how can we rise to meet the challenge, shift our operations, be proactive in the solutions?
So like I said, the large-scale investments needed to move our biggest museums toward net zero are daunting and they're critical. The museums are aging, right? Most are around 150 to 200 years old. So the infrastructure is reaching the end of its life cycle, needing new HVAC systems, lighting, air source heat pumps to meet the stringent climate policies, which are equally increasing.
The architectural campus or site of a museum is impactful in terms of audience engagement, visitor experience, sustainability, destination stewardship, placemaking and identity, regional capacity building and economic development. So how we design those spaces to be inviting, accessible, future-oriented, and future-proof.
How do we help people feel better in museums? Multisensory environments, introduction of green lungs, especially on urban campuses, introduction of water elements. These are things that have been going on for a while. The Barbican, of course, is not a new museum. But I think there's an argument to do even more of it, and there's certainly funding from corporate and individual partners to sustain it.
The culture sector is ultimately about people and protecting the communities from which we're deriving so much economic value. So whether we're talking about bringing in audiences that are sustaining the work locally or internationally, I think it all has to go back to supporting people.
I think one of the most exciting things happening in the space of collections care, though, is that we're thinking about care for collections as care for community. So I'm an Egyptologist by training. I spent most of my early career in the field, and people would always say, oh, Egyptian art, it's so old. Yeah, it's old, right? But the people who are impacted by the tourism dollars and the tourists who come to see Egyptian art are people living with us today. And if we don't attune to them and attune to their needs, then we're really not doing a service to collections at all.
Museums in particular have some of the largest data sets in the world. So how we choose to work with those without relinquishing expertise or a sense of authority for our curatorial partners will be quite important.
There's a huge opportunity in museums because they own the data sets. Most were founded as libraries, such as the British Museum. And the ownership of that data and the customization and playing that one can do with it is something that museums should really attend to.
So I think in the museum sector, at least over the last 100 years, the idea was always come up with the program, come up with the exhibition, come up with the acquisition, propose it to a potential funder, and if you build it, they will come. And actually, we need to flip the tables a little bit and think about what are the available funding or commercial opportunities that are in front of us, and how can our mission remain authentic but rise to meet those opportunities.
Of course, the exit through the gift shop model of commerce is fading, and we have new models, everything from taking nonprofits into for-profit structures like we have at UCCA in China, where there's multiple different branches that are commercial subsidiaries of the museum, or hosting hospitality ventures as we see in West Africa and at Versailles, where we're introducing not 1, but now 2 hotel properties on site, as well as starting a co-working lab and a tech incubator in the former stables of Louis XIV.
So the biggest idea to take away is that no man is an island and no museum is an island. There are 95,000 museums in the world now, and we are actually doing much the same work. We shouldn't be in competition with one another. So whether it's aggregate data systems, sharing collections, sharing best practices, sharing knowledge and talent through exchanges, professional collaboration efforts, we really should be partnering with one another for greater efficiencies and to have a greater sustainable operating model.
From Copenhagen to New York City, from Lagos to London, we are working together, and with 95,000 museums in the world, let's not be silos. Let's share best practices, let's share collections, let's share resources so that we can remain resilient.